recording, and we'll just get started. I want to welcome everyone to the Interdisciplinary Career panel. We are here today with three employees, or three sort of, how do I describe you guys? Three members of the team at Zymergen.
Employees is correct. We
you know how people like to use euphemisms so that it doesn't sound so, I don't know, like
being an employee.
What do you call it? Hierarchical. Anyway, so we are this session is kind of featuring a single company called Zymergen, and we really wanted to highlight this company in particular because we felt that it was kind of a pioneering company in a new emerging field. Even though I know some folks who actually helped start the company, I still have trouble describing what Zymergen does. I'm going to take a crack at it, but I'm not as smart as you guys. I studied film, so I talk kind of good, but I can't really think straight. So, but Zymergen, as far as I know, is like their revolution is that they're utilizing machine learning, fermentation science, and automation to really make the process of creating microbes more efficient, much faster, and more far-reaching in terms of the types of things that these new microbes can do. So everything from dispensing with waste plastics to potentially newer materials that make wearables smaller. And lots of other things in between, pesticides that are environmentally friendly and whatnot. It's really sort of harnessing the true power of biology as a way to manufacture, I guess, earth-friendly products. So what we would like to do here is to have the Zymergen employees themselves talk about their own path to their careers, and also the ways in which this new and exciting field engages folks from a variety of STEM disciplines above and beyond your traditional engineering and computer science disciplines. So why don't we just go down on at least on my screen, we have Madeline, then Nandita, and then Alex. If you guys could each sort of introduce yourselves and talk about your role within the company, and really start talking about like what got you excited about working for Zymergen in the first place. So Madeline, would you like to start?
Yeah, I got a cat running around. There we go. I'm Madeline. I'm an automation engineer at Zymergen, and I'll describe that because automation engineer has a lot of different definitions. What I do is I program chemistry robots. So we, as a company, make cells that make materials, and I help the robots make the cells. I feel like I super lucked into this job. I started my background studying molecular biology and started out in assay development kind of work with genomics. And at my last company, kind of wandered into automation work and realized it's a lot more fun to make tools that make your job a lot easier. And so I'm continuing that here.
Great. How about you, Nandita?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Nandita, and I'm a material scientist. So I've been at Zymergen for 2.5 years now. My background is, so my bachelor's is in polymer engineering, and then my PhD is in material science, where I was still working with like different kinds of polymers, making coatings for medical devices. So that's kind of where I did a bulk of my graduate work, which led me to my first job, which was using some of these really cool coatings and applying them to real life medical devices and actually seeing them, be used in people. I mean, I didn't do that, somebody else did, but what I did make these more efficient for the medical device industry. But then after a couple of years in that space, when I was moving to looking for a new job, Zymergen proved to be like a really good opportunity, because what I am doing is still I'm working in the material science space. So I'm still working on coatings and a little bit in adhesives. So they're very specialty materials areas, but you see coatings and adhesives used everywhere around you, whether it is to glue your wood together, together, or metal together, or plastic. We are like right now looking at more specialty materials that go into consumer electronics, so like phones and tablets and things like that. But here what I'm doing is I'm taking some of the chemicals that are made by fermentation. So as Madeline talked about cells making materials, I take those materials and then modify them to make them something to be utilized in an application. So I mean, I'm not a biologist, or I don't do anything with cells at all, but I'm very much happy to see that the cells are making some really unique starting points, which I can then convert into adhesives and coatings, which can be used. So our main objective is to move away from petrochemical products, which is what mainly is used right now, right? Like everything is made from some kind of a carbon petrochemical source. So we are trying to move away from the petrochemical starting point and use, you know, like biomass or sugar or anything which is like more bio-friendly, and having the cells make some cool starting points for us, which I can then use to make high performance materials. So that's me.
Cool. Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I've been at Zymergen for a couple years. I'm a product manager focusing on internal software and data science services that help us predict what molecules we think we can make from biology. So Nandita is actually one of my customers in a way, where she leverages the software that I work with this software and data science teams to help, you know, scope what we're going to do, prioritize, you know, our resources effectively, and make sure we're developing tools that'll best serve the needs of our chemists and biologists. And I've been, you know, a biochem nerd for a long time. I studied chemical engineering back in the day, but I was horrible in the lab. It just wasn't for me. I wrecked my grad students' experiments, and it just, you know, I realized I enjoy being surrounded by the science, but ultimately I need to find different ways to contribute to these organizations in a less technical way. I spent a couple of years in consulting, giving me broad exposure to a wide range of different function areas, and I found the product management function as a good balance between, you know, high-level strategy and key business priorities with on-the-ground execution, working with technical members. And I think one last thing I want to add about my background is I think the foundation for my work ethic and all the hard work I've put in to get me to this point is really from my mom, who immigrated from Mexico as an undocumented immigrant in the 1970s, first in her family, 9 out of 10 children, to go to college, and really set, you know, the inspiration for me that our education system is the foundation for success in this country. So excited to be talking to you all today.
Wow, awesome. Thank you, Alex. So at actually now that we have you know, I think like 25, 26 students on, it would be great if you guys students could sort of introduce yourselves and chat. At pretty soon in a few minutes, we're going to really encourage you guys to ask questions that these guys can answer. But before we go there, I would love, and Alex, since you now seem to be paid to talk as much as do experiments, maybe you can sort of describe, I tried to describe what Zymergen is, but like, we get that you're making microbes to turn into other products, but like, how do you actually make money? Like, who is paying you to do this? Wait, well, what is how does a company like Zymergen sort of, you know, grow and stay in business? How does the company work?
Yeah, we're disrupting the chemical industry with more sustainable technology. And it's not just sustainable techniques and greener molecules to replace existing stuff, leveraging the power of nature, leveraging billions of years of evolution and different enzymes and different products. You really unlock a whole new chemical space that'll deliver better products, not just greener products, but better molecules that'll really disrupt what we're doing, whether that's, you know, our hyaline product for our flexible film or whatnot. We create differentiated value, and that's where the money is. You know, people like to say, oh, we'll you know, put money towards green technologies, but it's hard on a free market to really compete then with what else is going out there. The big dollars are for really these, you know, differentiated products, and that's really what we're trying to pursue here.
Mm-hmm. I'll add one thing. So yeah, I think that's exactly what we're trying to do. But in terms of when you said, how do we make money? I think one of the things that, especially like from, you know, where I sit in the company and the kind of things I do and my fellow, scientists who are working on similar things is basically we try to, either directly sell a product to a company who's interested in buying it, or we also get into like joint development agreements. I think that's one of the big things that has happened for this high lean product that Alex talks about. We have this is a well-known thing. There's a company from Japan called Sumitomo, and we're working with them to develop this transparent polyimide film, which will then go into consumer electronics, mainly like foldable displays and phones. So this is, they are going to benefit from us making the product, but at the same time, we need a partner so that, we are relatively an unknown company. We are not an Apple or a 3M. So how do we get into the market so that people will want to buy our product? And one of the best things that we have, at least like initially started with, is getting into joint developments with well-known companies so we can leverage their expertise, their knowledge, and they can leverage our innovation and molecules that are made through biology to actually make high performance materials. But I think ultimately, green chemistry, green products are great, but if they don't work well, people are not going to buy them. And that's where I think the differentiation comes from Zymergen, is that we are trying to not only make sustainable products, but higher, superior performance products compared to what's already out there.
Awesome. Madeline, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I can round that out. And the main advantage of bio-based materials is we're using this cell, and a cell is an incredibly complicated piece of machinery. And so it's not easy to manipulate, but if you can manipulate, you can make materials that are just far more complicated than anything you're going to make with petroleum. So I work on the automation side, the lab side. The question is, how efficient can we make this process of making cells do what we want? And so part of it also, the reason we're specialized is we have this automation team, we have all these really high throughput processes. So we can kind of go through that process of fairly basic level, like biological iteration, but at such a rate that we can produce results at an economical speed.
So if you're a biologist working at Zymergen, and it sounds like you guys are all sort of in the engineering and I mean, obviously Alex is a product manager, but like if you're a biologist, what is your job? I mean, what it might be an example of what you would do at Zymergen?
Yeah, I am not a biologist. I do have a biology background, so I'm going to kind of hand wave around it. So the automation team works very close with our biologists because we kind of give them tools to do their job more effectively. But biologists are doing all sorts of processes. We do everything from genomics work to cell engineering to like small scale fermentation. And all of this, what we're effectively trying to do at the high level is kind of sort through this library of genomic sequences that might be interesting and might make a cell that makes something interesting. And then we want to take that sequence and then put it into a strain of E. coli or some microorganism, and then see what that does when you start to ferment it. Because we can have all these theories about, okay, well, if we have this gene, it'll make the cell do this, and it'll thrive under X, Y, and Z conditions. But we need to test that. And one of the tricky things is predicting how a cell will behave at large scale fermentation based on how it performs at small scale fermentation. So we have scientists that focus on all those different areas because they are entirely separate areas of expertise. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the main jobs that all of us do is just learning how to communicate with each other, because we all do very different things. I interact with these people basically never, but we also rely on each other deeply to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. I think Zymergen has a lot of different backgrounds and expertise, and it's really amazing. Like, that's for sure. It's really amazing that you get to interact with, computational chemists to software engineers to biologists to chemists to material scientists to microbiologists. It's like really, really amazing.
Cool. So Alex, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I think on the biology question specifically, like, what a biologist does at Zymergen, which is probably, the most common position at the company. It's we make molecules, right? So if you think about, what's the road? Think about setting up a map or a route to something. It's like, what's the road? How are we actually going to make this molecule? It's like, okay, once you locked in the route there, it's like, now that you've done that, you've built that into cells, you've tested that through fermentation. How do we, increase the speed limit? How do we push more volume through this route that we've determined? And that takes the development of lots and lots of different strains, testing those and seeing what those incremental improvements are, so we can get a good titer, as we say, of the molecules that we're making.
Awesome. So we actually got a question from a student, and this is a student who is a biology major right now as an undergrad, and she's asking questions about internship opportunities, and I assume that you guys do have college interns of varying numbers depending on the year, I'm guessing. But she also asked, I think it's a she, also asked if getting an advanced degree would be important for being able to work at a place like, well, at your company.
I would love to take this question because this is something I spent a lot of time thinking about. My background is in molecular biology, and I was very afraid coming out of school because I did not want to go to grad school, but it's really hard to like figure out what pathways exist in like the sciences when you don't have like a grad degree. And so there's lots of opportunities for just a bachelor's degree in like research associate is a common phrase we'll hear, and that's doing a lot of the lab work and kind of rapid iteration of science, which my first internships in industry were those kind of positions. And I found it to be extremely fun because you get to do the scientific process, but it's a very collaborative experience. And if you're coming out of school, you're exposed to a lot of more academia sphere, and it's a very different mode of thinking. And you kind of get, you think that's the only world out there. And what I learned quickly is there's just so many different ways to like work without getting a grad degree. You just need to find them, and that's actually the tricky part. And for me, like I started out doing these kind of assay development type roles where I was working with other scientists who had their PhDs and whatnot. But I was doing a lot of this work and experimental design on my own, and then I found like, oh wait, I can actually do the automation here, and I can help scientists build these processes, and I'll learn the robots. So it's kind of about finding the different niches at different companies, but they definitely exist.
So you don't need to go to grad school is what you're saying. You haven't gone yet.
You can. Just different.
Well, I mean, what percentage of folks there do you think have advanced degrees?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so there's advanced degrees is anything beyond a bachelor's. Is that what you? So an MBA and master's is all advanced degrees, right?
Yeah.
Then we do have a high number of folks with advanced degrees. I would say more than 50%. Yeah. For sure. Because I think as Madeline said, like I think being a research associate / chemist is how we in our group is usually like chemist is the term. So yes, and you can start off as a research associate. Figure out if you like it. I think you don't have to make the decision to go to grad school at 22 when you're finishing your bachelor's. I think that is what I think one of the big things. You could always go get a job right after your bachelor's degree. Figure out if this is what you truly like and understand what kind of career paths exist in the field that you are interested in. And once you're in industry, once you talk to people who are working in that company, you can get a lot more understanding of what exists for you. And you can at that time make the decision that, yeah, I really want to be here, or I want to become a subject matter expert. If you're really passionate about science, or whichever field you're in, yes, getting an advanced degree is useful because if you want to continue to be in that field. So that I think is a decision that you'll have to take, but you don't have to take that right after you're finishing your bachelor's. You can certainly work for a few years, and that's happened. People, I definitely know so many folks at Zymergen who come work for a few years and they're like, oh, now I want to go pursue a PhD or an MBA, and then they go and do that. So know that you can certainly get a flavor for what's out there before you make that decision.
So I think if I remember correctly, Alex, you probably have an MBA, and the other.
I'm considering an MBA.
Oh, you're considering an MBA. So
yeah.
You were at Bain as an AC?
I was, yes.
Okay. Great. And then, so none of you guys have advanced degrees.
Oh, I have a
of yet.
PhD.
Oh, you have a PhD.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't look that old. Okay, never mind. So you do now. So the panel does represent a variety of, somebody who went straight from undergrad, somebody who has a PhD, and somebody who's considering an MBA. I'm going to continue to encourage students to post questions of our panelists, but until we get some other questions, I've been kind of excited to ask you, what's the coolest project that you've been a part of at Zymergen?
I can jump on this first.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm so excited. So for some context, the field of lab automation is pretty new and pretty immature, and like different companies have wildly different levels of automation and how much they treat it seriously or just like buy a machine and then kind of don't look at it ever again. And we have been developing this modular automation system, which is super exciting to me, both as someone who used to run lab processes and someone who gets to now design processes for the system. And it's a really cool combination. We work with our software engineers and our mechatronics engineers and our scientists to have this sort of plug and play automation system where you can pull instruments in and out within a matter of minutes. And being a part of that is so exciting because it's a new tool that fills a very real need that other systems have just not been able to fulfill in like a reasonable way. And I get to work with software engineers to design the tools that I'm going to get to use. And it's like playing God. It's great.
Whoa. Okay. So Madeline likes to play God. Good to know. No, we actually got a question that you just answered, but there's an add-on question, which is, are there interns that work closely with you guys?
With me, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah,
and that sounds like everybody has interns.
Yeah, I think whenever, like, it's usually during the summer time that we get interns in between school years. But whenever an intern is, when we have interns, they definitely work very closely with either a research associate or a scientist. Like the idea is for, us to mentor them and for them to really learn how things are done on the job in industry. And at no point will they just be like left to their own devices. Like that doesn't happen.
You don't have that like go make me coffee type
they
of
wander the streets of America.
Yeah. No, so they certainly will be paired up with another person who will be their main source of mentorship and teaching them how things are done and so on. And usually there'll be like specific projects that will be designed for the intern during their time at the company. So it's like a good, like, whatever, 6 to 8 weeks of a specific goal that they are trying to achieve, which also makes them appreciate what they're doing and help them, achieve a small aspect of the project.
Awesome. We have another, I think, a really great question from Victor. The question is, can you use automation and robotics interchangeably? If not, what's the difference? And then a related question, someone else was asking, what sort of, what does it say? What sort of machines are you guys using? I'm assuming a lot of those are proprietary, sort of like machines of your own design, but first the automation and versus robotics question.
Yeah, you're going to learn my language gets very sloppy around this because we work with people who all use these words in different ways. Like I'm part of an automation department, but within that we do a lot of different things. So robotics usually refers more to like the mechanical level, how do the machines work, which I actually don't deal with, but we have a habit of calling things robots because it's frankly fun. Automation, around this area, actually every once in a while I'll get some email from Facebook saying, hey, do you want to join our software team? I'm like, you are looking at the wrong person. Automation can mean anything, automating any process. Often it's referred to automating software worlds, but in the world of lab automation, it's more about automating these lab processes. So automation is a more general term. And for us, the main sort of medium we work in is with these proprietary instruments, but from other third-party vendors. So we have some of our internal stuff, but for the most part, we're integrating systems because these are very high precision instruments that people spend years and years developing, and it would be very silly for us to invent all of these different things from scratch. So the question is, how do we work with these, and how do we work around them and build software tools or hardware systems that integrate them seamlessly and eliminate sort of all of the different error states?
Thank you. Actually, somebody wanted to know what brands you use. I don't know what they, I don't know why. I don't know if it would make any difference, but are there particular, are you able to share that, or?
I can't, I don't even know how to start. I'm shocked that anybody cares.
Somebody wants to know Haas automation machines. Haas?
I'm not familiar with that off the top of my head,
Okay.
but this person should reach out on LinkedIn. I'll have to talk about it more. There's lots of names of niche companies that no one has ever heard of.
We also have videos, right, that show our automation robotics a little bit.
Some very fancy videos, yes.
I wonder if that's something we could dig up and share out with the group afterwards.
Yeah, that'd be great. So let's actually go to Nandita and ask you to talk about the coolest project you've been a part of. And then somebody else, Jorge Escobar also wants to know what made you guys choose the field that you're currently in.
Okay, so I would, as cliched as it sounds, I would argue that pretty much all the projects that I have worked on have been cool in one way or the other. And to me, I think honestly, the reason I say that is because as a material scientist, I am looking, it's really about true innovation of trying to make these materials behave better. So I am looking at a wide array of starting materials, which is really unavailable otherwise. So whatever project I'm working on, it's always about the same that, hey, I am now going to try to make something better, and I'm going to use something that nobody else is going to use anywhere else in an industry. So that aspect really makes me excited about any project that I'm working on, and it makes it kind of cool in its own way because, and as I said, so I work mainly on adhesives and coatings that go into electronics. So whether it is gluing the cover film in your phone, so you might need something that is like extremely clear, or you might need something that is really stretchy because you want to have a higher impact resistance. So it's all about these really niche products that are used in our electronic applications. So they may not sound, like for like an everyday person, it's like, oh, it's just another glue that goes in your phone, right? So that's what kind of even that sounds as uncool as that sounds, but because the approach to it is so unique and so novel, that's what I think makes it like cool and exciting to work on.
Awesome. And what made you choose to go into this your particular field?
So some of it, okay, so I knew I wanted to be in material science. I think that I knew when I finished my bachelor's and I was going to go for a grad school to do my PhD. I knew I wanted to be in the field of material science, and that's why I decided to pursue my PhD right after my bachelor's. And how I came about in like coatings and adhesives, that I think was a combination of the projects I worked on in grad school, and then how it took me to my first job, which was in the medical device industry. So I have worked in a couple of different industries, but on similar kind of applications. And now it's I've gained expertise in that. So that's kind of where I am. But I think it's working with polymers, which is what I wanted to do. And going to like grad school in material science and working on those like polymer related projects is I think how I got here.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alex, could you share, some of the favorite projects that you've been a part of? And then as an add-on question for you in particular, can you talk about a STEM discipline that's represented within the employees of Zymergen that might be surprising to our audience?
Cool. I'll start with the former. The favorite project that I worked on is our Zinc software platform. I think it's the centerpiece. Yeah, Nandita knew I was going to say that. The centerpiece of our product discovery suite, helping our chemists and biologists choose molecules that we think we can make through biology. Just last July, the Zinc software product was just drawings on paper. In the last year and a half, it's become so much more. From, you know, launching it in January as just a kind of a database of molecules we think we can make, to adding on new features to make it more collaborative, such as saving and sharing of molecules and searches. And we have such an exciting roadmap to come over the next few years that it's cool to see something that was just, you know, drawn up on paper as an idea. This would be helpful for a chemist and biologist to become a tool that now our CEO is showing off to investors. And, you know, we're getting the general, you know, Zymergen community excited about it. It has been a lot of fun. And with regards to the second question, which is, it's tough because I think, as I think it through STEM disciplines, I feel like there's a place for nearly everything, right? Ranging from bioengineering and the biology side, which makes sense as we're engineering microbes, to computer science, some of the data science disciplines, as we're kind of taking all that data we generate from our strains and making predictions from it. Mechanical engineering on the automation side, to the chemical engineering as we scale up the molecular processes that we make, to chemistry, you know, and the work that Nandita is doing. Maybe, yeah, I'm trying to think where's there's
like a beer background.
Right, I heard that early days you had to do a lot of recruiting from Germany because you couldn't find enough fermentation scientists here. Not enough people like make their own beer here, apparently. Is that still a big part of what you guys do, fermentation science?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
That's a big part of our scale up in anything. Generally speaking, we're working with some, you know, external client, and ultimately the goal is to have large scale fermenters in some factory that we don't have anything to do with. But we need to know that it's going to work. So we definitely have people who are experts specifically in that fermentation, so that we know how to model it at a small scale, because that's more efficient for us.
Cool. So we have another really interesting question from a student, which is, it seems like this person's an engineer, but how much prior knowledge should an engineer have about biology and other sort of like related sciences in order to apply to be an engineer at your company?
It totally depends on the role and the team and what you're doing. There's definitely, I would say on my team, we have a huge diversity of background experience. You have some folks who come from like just zero background in biology, and they're here more from like the mechatronics side. And I think the biggest skill, like you have to be able to learn. You have to learn how to communicate, but you don't need to become an expert in genomics in order to work with people who work on that. So totally depends.
Okay, thank you. As you know, MESA is a program that's sort of dedicated to helping underrepresented young people, you know, pursue careers in STEM. The three of you are in one way or another members of an underrepresented group in STEM, whether it's because you're a woman or of your ethnic background or whatnot. Can you talk about what Zymergen as a company does to make, you know, to make it easier for you to be a part of the team, or how do they sort of work with folks of different backgrounds to make sure that all your perspectives and your experiences are honored?
Okay, I can start a little bit. So I think Zymergen definitely tries to be very diverse. Like right now, there's a big initiative for diversity, equity, and inclusion to kind of, you know, figure out to make sure that we are taking into account all of these aspects when we are hiring. Because I think one of the things that is a fairly common knowledge for just STEM is that as you go higher up in the ranks, it gets harder and harder, or the diversity gets lower and lower. So that's something that Zymergen is actively involved in right now to ensure that, you know, we are making all efforts from our side to hire a diverse set of folks, so that as you continue going up, like you still don't lose that diversity. People are very inclusive at Zymergen. I have not, like, you know, fortunately haven't had to deal with any like awkward situations. So I feel pretty lucky about that, and that's a lot to do with like the people and the culture at Zymergen, which is very inclusive and collaborative, and just you respect the people you work with, you give them the opportunity to bring their point of view to the table, and all points of view are accepted. Like, you discuss it before you dismissing anything, because that's kind of the culture they're trying to build at Zymergen, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's something that's an active challenge, and there have been periods where we've been better and worse over the years. And I think we actually have an interesting intersection between like people diversity and then the diversity of roles of the company. And both of those kind of show up in different ways that are both really challenging. Like, for example, the average software engineer working in the Bay Area expects a certain kind of workplace, and the average person showing up to a more manufacturing-oriented job expects a certain workplace. And managers from different levels with different industry experience are all coming to the same place. So even if you take out people diversity, there's already this very loaded environment, and we are constantly trying to figure out how to make it work better. And so then bring people diversity into it, and sort of the same things come up, and they intersect in different ways. And I found the thing we do the best is like speak openly and listen. And this is something that I've been in a couple of companies. A lot of them talk about transparency. It's true to varying degrees. Here, I really do believe that, like, if I am seeing a problem, if I'm not even sure it's a problem, whatever, I bring it up to managers, and it is heard and addressed, and sometimes very slowly addressed. But when there's just so much going on, and you can, like, I don't know anything about Nandita's experience. I don't know anything about material science. She can say anything, I will believe her, which just makes these conversations really hard, because people are all coming to the table with what they're experiencing or what's going on or what they think we should do. And it's just hard, and it's an active conversation.
Yeah, a few things I'll add on. I think one, there's good messaging from the top. Josh, our CEO, is a champion of diversity and continually states the importance of that. Kind of building on what Nandita and Madeline said about, all these different ideas and open conversations. There's a big part of our culture is assuming goodwill. So whatever perspectives and opinions people bring, kind of, listen to them, take them, and then assume that people are meeting their best, allows people to be more open, ideas to be more, accepted, and good conversations to happen. One other piece I want to add on is there's a pretty big investment Zymergen makes in its learning and development team. We're a relatively small company, and we have a few people focused just exclusively on helping the Zymergen community grow. And there's classes such as behaviors of inclusion that help people learn how to foster, inclusive environments, which I'm happy that the company this small is making that a priority.
Cool. Thank you. So does your company do some of the common, I know you guys aren't huge yet, but you are growing, but some of the bigger companies will have a big set of ERGs, right? Like you'll have the Latino engineers group, or the female fermentation scientist group, or things along those lines. Do you guys have, or maybe not even really big enough or old enough for those things to grow organically? You do?
Yeah, we've had them since we were a lot smaller. In fact, I remember back, I want to say there were 400, 500 people when I joined, and they were already selling me on all of these resource groups for queer folks, for women, for our multicultural association. I think we also just had a beer makers group, because
beer makers are going to beer make.
Yeah, that was a part of the company from the start. And I'll say one thing I definitely noticed interviewing at Zymergen, and this was really important for me, because in lab automation, most of the companies I look at, one of the other ones I was looking at, literally it looked like they had never hired a woman before. And there's just a lot of that in my field, and it was very stark difference, just showing up and seeing that just people were very visibly whoever they were. And that was a selling point, in my opinion.
So how would you just then, for you, Madeline, how would you describe the work culture at Zymergen? And it sounds like what you're saying is folks were empowered or felt comfortable being who they were, and there were a great variety of folks who were what they were.
Yeah, and I mean that across basically every dimension. To me, it felt very much like I don't know, there's such a diversity of people's backgrounds, from like whether they came from a very biased terminology, but like very stuffy industry background, and you have people who are like pure startups, like go get them, disrupt. And so like from that angle, from orientation and presentation and just truly every dimension, it seems like people are pretty comfortable being whatever like is important to them. So there's a lot of different things, which also, again, feeding back into the communication thing, it's everyone's coming from a different place, and that feeds challenges, but also allows us to be this really complex organism of a company.
Does it feel like it's a company, and this is for all three of you, does it feel like a place where you could sort of move up? Is there a career path within the company for you, or is it sort of like, well, here's the role that I'm doing, and if I want to move up, I'll have to either shift gears or go somewhere else and then come back? Like, what's the career trajectory like for you moving forward?
I can take that because we literally had this discussion yesterday. So it's a work in progress. I think some fields or some like positions that have been around, say from the very beginning, have a little bit of a career path, but not every position, especially as they hire more and more people of different backgrounds. People are coming from very different industries. So that also makes it very difficult. How do you standardize it across the company to kind of give people similar opportunities that they would have, say, potentially gotten if they were still in their previous industry? And how do you manage expectations? And how do you kind of give people the right opportunity to move forward? So there is not, I would say that this is something that they are actively trying to work on, which I'm glad to hear, because as a scientist, you know, there are certain things that we have seen happen in the past, or you see in like sister like virtuals in the organization, that, oh, if I'm a scientist in, say, department A, in department B, this is the track I see, but I don't know if that applies to me. So they are trying to establish that across the organization. So I will certainly say that it is not a done deal. I think it's a work in progress, and the upper management is working on establishing some career ladders so that you can have an understanding of what this means for you 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. And then, you know, your question about, do you have to move to another if you want to go forward? I think there is certainly a lot of horizontal movement that can happen depending on where you see yourself, and if you have those conversations with your manager, that if I decide that, no, I don't want to be you know, a next level up in scientist, but I want to go, say, to the management track, or I want to go into marketing, or whatever it is, like, I can have those conversations, and that definitely exists, like exploring what else you can do. So there's a lot of this openness to explore, and they're trying to figure out career paths, but they are not all laid in place yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, and a company so cross-functional, there's a wide range of different opportunities and roles that people can take on.
Yeah.
And from my own experience as a product manager, I was just talking to our CTO the other day about this very specifically. And I was like, okay, in the next 5 years, I could still go up the product manager ladder and then maybe be a more senior product manager, but my scope would be, you know, slightly expanded. I don't know if that's something that I'm really interested in. He's like, okay, Alex, you know, we like what you're doing here. There's a wide range of different roles on different teams. Let's think about, you know, what you want to do longer term than that, and what the best different roles. So the fact that he's so open to have that conversation, considering like even if it's not on my team, like, that's okay. Like, we want you to succeed here in the Zymergen environment, as we figure out, you know, some more of the specifics as Nandita called out.
So we got a question in a slightly different vein. Are you able to establish a work-life balance in your field? Has it been more difficult with COVID?
I mean, I think we could all agree that COVID makes everything more difficult. I don't think that's a controversial stance. The work-life balance is interesting, and it's another. I think it's so different across the company. For myself, I've done a really good job of maintaining a balance, and obviously I'm now working from home 90%, which is, my job is historically lab-based. I figured out a new way to do my job, and I'm actually really effective at it, and it's really fun now that I figured it out. But it was a whole process figuring out how that works, and not going through that transition is helpful. But I definitely have coworkers who have varying degrees of success with this, and it does come down to, like, one, how supportive your team and management is, and which mine is, and then for you, what works and how do you set yourself up to have a work-life balance, because it's very easy to let yourself not have one. People will let you do it. It's not necessarily sustainable.
Oh, was I muted? Nandita and Alex, you guys want to talk about work-life balance?
Yeah, I think as Madeline said, the COVID has obviously made things more difficult. And I think early on, when everything was, we were all working from home and there was no going to the lab, it took a little while getting used to, but I think people understand that this is a difficult situation, and just talking to your manager, that always helps. If there is any, if you have any difficulties, especially for, I think, people with families, I think that has been a point of discussion, and they have been open about it. So I think that's been helpful. And I think Zymergen has also provided us with enough, like some compensation to make sure that you can have a home office. And so as a company, they're trying to make your life a little bit easier so that you can perform your job effectively, even if you're not in the office. So it's hard sometimes, but I think overall, I would say that I'm happy with my work-life balance.
Yeah, and for me, I think the work-life balance is amazing, but I have a bad baseline where I used to do consulting, which had like no work-life balance. So I think Zymergen's amazing.
You didn't have a life, Alex. It was just work.
It's just PowerPoint slides after PowerPoint slides.
You should do the workshop on making effective presentations, DexRS. So we're actually coming towards the end of our session here, and we did have another question of folks were interested in like the intern experience, but what I kind of wanted you guys to speak to was how you came, like what the process was for you to get hired into Zymergen. And then if one of you wants to answer the question about intern experience, that'd be great. But I'm really interested in like, okay, so what attracted your attention? Were you recruited? What was the interview process like? And then what made you decide to jump in and join? So if you could go in whatever order you want, just jump on in.
Okay, I can go. So I basically saw a job posting. Like when I was looking for a new job, I wanted to find the right job. That was more important to me, like working in a company that is either working, I think for me, this was great. This is like really a lot of innovation, a lot of true R&D. So that attracted me to the job. And it was not so much about just, hey, it's a material science job, I'll just go for it. It was not that. It was what Zymergen was trying to do, what they stand for, what their mission is, what their vision is. So that attracted me. But I basically applied on Indeed. And I think it was my resume, it was a good fit for the position. So I got a call back from the recruiter, and the process was really smooth overall. At least that, I think everybody has a slightly different experience. I fortunately had a good one. The recruiter was really like responsive. And once, they called me for the first round of like phone screens, things went like really quickly. After that, I spoke to the hiring manager. And after that, I was brought on site. And I really liked what I saw when I came on site, because 2.5 years ago, Zymergen was smaller than what it is today. It didn't have as much press. Our website was terrible. I couldn't understand. I knew what it was, but oh, good Lord, like now our website is so much better. Like marketing has done a phenomenal job. So it's really improved. But when I applied, I was like, I think I know what they do. And it made sense. But when I came here and spoke to the people, and I was like, okay, I get it now. I understand what your kind of vision is, how you want to expand, how you want to grow, how interdisciplinary it is. I saw, what they're doing. So that kind of totally sold me on it. And when I got the offer, I basically had no choice but to take it. So it was a good process. And yeah, that's how I got hired at Zymergen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also had a fairly traditional, I think I applied either through LinkedIn or the website. For me, the pool of companies that does lab automation is relatively small. So I, at the time, pretty much had every listing kind of accounted for. And I do remember like reading through the job description, and because Zymergen does so much and there's so many different ways for people to succeed, I remember looking at the listing again before I interviewed and going, wait a second, I'm not qualified for this. You're listing about 100 different areas of expertise. And it wasn't until talking to people to realize, oh, it's because we do so much. And yeah, getting our message under control and how we talk outside of the company is definitely an active challenge. But it's another thing. We're meeting people and coming on site. I came away from that day going, oh, this is great. I love these people. I love what the company does. The science is interesting. The automation is interesting.
Thank you. Alex.
Yeah, and then for me, it was a slightly different approach, but kind of on the other end of the spectrum there, as opposed to like, oh, what is Zymergen? I see it on a job posting. For me, I was lucky that one of my friends from school was like the 50th employee, and she said nothing but great things about the company. So as I was, getting to the end of the time, and as a consultant, I was ready to move on to something in biotech that I was excited about. It was on my short list of companies. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, here's, I'm interested in product management. Is there anyone on the PM team you can connect me with? Talk to my old boss. He's since left the company, but I was like, wow, you'd be great to work for. I'm excited. I feel good about this. So from there, kind of just interviewed and then ended up working for him for a couple of years. So that was great.
Cool, thank you. So as a final thing, if you guys could, I really appreciate all the time and all your candor and all your great words that you brought to the table here today. If you could sort of like close us out with just a couple words of advice for students on tangible things that they could do to best prepare for a career at Zymergen. Again, like we're not, it's best when everyone speaks to what they know best. So, what should they do to prepare to work at Zymergen? I think that can translate into, success in many other places. But as a final word of advice for our students, what can they do to best prepare to be an intern or an entry-level employee at Zymergen?
I think there's two angles I would answer this one. One is in terms of like skills, if you want to succeed, again, figuring out how to communicate about technical things in a way that works with the people, like talking to people outside of your specific area of expertise and figuring out how to talk about your expertise in a way that they can understand is an invaluable skill. From the other side, from a career perspective, the thing I've found to be really helpful is keeping track of what I like and what I'm good at, and looking for opportunities to jump on things when I come up. Like that's how I wormed my way into a different field that I'm now absolutely in love with.
Yeah, I think those are really great points from Madeline. I would certainly add that be open to learning. Just because just because you learn, did say computer engineering or biology in your bachelor's doesn't mean that is what you would do 10 years from then. So be open, be adaptable, be open to change, because change can be great. So no. So I would say that do not close yourself to any opportunities, and do not limit yourself to think that I may not be qualified for that job. I think go for it, try, see if it works out, because if you don't be afraid to try and be open to learn would be especially, I think that's really key at Zymergen, because there are so many things that I've been here for a couple of years. I know a fraction of things because there's just so much happening at Zymergen. So yeah, those would be the two things I would say.
Yeah, and just I think another point, as you hear it in the talk today, all three of us are really excited and passionate about what Zymergen's doing. And if this sounds cool to you, express that enthusiasm and excitement in the interview process. That's something that interviewers are going to be looking for, given how niche of an area this is, showing that passion for the mission and what we're or we're going to do something that I think can definitely make you stand out. And then when you're there, it really helps contribute to the culture, because what we're doing is hard. It doesn't go right all the time, but having the group of people across so many disciplines excited for what we're doing, I think is critical. And then as a last 30-second pitch for the industry, I think synthetic biology is going to be the future. You just look at the way DNA costs of sequencing and synthesizing have dropped so much over the last couple of decades. Like, the 21st century is the century of biology. So think about Zymergen, come join the bio revolution, and looking forward to working with you all.
All right, thank you. I think we're just about out of time. It was really great getting to know you guys, and thank you so much for all that you've shared with us. Please do keep in touch, and I don't know, I think some of you might be doing the informational interviews next Friday, so that'll be cool. But I just reached out to you on LinkedIn, so feel free to reject me, but I did that anyway. And are you open to students doing the same thing?
Yes, absolutely. And I highly recommend it too, especially if you're interested in Zymergen. Help get that foot in the door for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Oh,
Thomas, you're mute. Nope.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
I keep forgetting to hold on the space bar. All right, so thank you for everyone for a great session. Students, if you could sort of express your enthusiasm to these great folks, that'd be great. And we'll see you at the next session.
And
Yeah,
please,
good luck to all the students.
please use the link in the chat to fill out the survey. And thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. That was awesome.
Thank you.
See you later.
If you haven't already RSVP'd for an afternoon session, don't forget to do so. Technical interviews and how to present and navigate the world when everything is online are the two options.